Welcome to Trinity Radio. I am Braxton Hunter.
Yes, you are, and I'm Jonathan Pritchett.
And today we're going to be talking a little bit about, you found the channel that loves atheists, and recently we've been discussing, or I've been putting out videos that have been atheists versus other atheists and how they talk and the kinds of things they say. And it just so happens that I came across this article from just a couple of months ago where it's three. I don't think they're actually three atheists. I think one of them's just agnostic or something. But three non-theists anyway who understand the importance of Christianity. And so the article is titled "Atheist Against Atheism." And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. But if you're new to the Friday live stream, don't worry, relax. It's all going to be okay. Let me just tell you what you can expect. You can expect to hear Pritchett and I talk our way through this this article. And we'll be also taking questions. We just kind of take questions kind of as we go. But if you want your question answered, type question in all caps or just do that.
And you can give money in a super chat and you'll get your question bumped to the top.
Okay, yes.
I've got
YouTube etiquette.
He won't do it. I have no problem shilling for money. Okay, so. And
then directly following, if you'd like me to say something about money, directly following this stream, and it's going to be at 2:30. It's hard set. I feel like I'm coming in a little hot here. What's going to happen is we're going to do an after show. We do that every week now. Well, this is like the fourth or fifth time we've done it, where that's just for patrons. So if you're one of our patrons, you can look in the link in the description. Just go to patreon.com /Trinity Radio. And what's going to happen is you're going to be able to watch the live stream there. Now, listen closely, because the past several weeks you've had to go to the Trinity Radio Patreon only Facebook group.
You don't
have to do that. You can go right to Patreon. If you'd like to go to Facebook to see it, it's there too. At 2:30, we're going to start that discussion, and we even let people jump on the video with us and chat. Sometimes we have a guest. So that's going to be a lot of fun, I'm sure. But
here's why I want more patron money. Let me tell you why
ahead.
I want more. There are a lot of podcasts that I've discovered that actually employ people. Mm-hmm. And I would like to be on that level to where we can employ people so that they fix everything, so that we can start at 1.
That'd be a good thing. But then another thing about it is
have a whole tech department like all these real podcasts have.
It is actually true that at this very moment, some of you who used to listen to the podcast probably know that those are way behind. And I even try to take whatever time I have occasionally to try and catch those up. I'm still way behind. And, I'd like to be able to, pay someone something meager, but helpful a month to do that for me so that I don't have to think about it. Things like that, because we don't just do this. We are also at a Bible college and seminary, and we travel and speak and all those kind of things. So, and I should say this, speaking of us traveling and speaking.
They don't foot the bill for any of this.
Yeah. And
they're like, okay, so you're going to make up those hours.
Yeah, right. That's right. But should say that speaking of traveling, Pritchett and I and Eric Hernandez and Inspiring Philosophy's Michael Jones are all going to be together working as a team, speaking at a conference outside of Dallas, Texas.
Crandall, Texas.
In a place called Crandall, Texas, at Central Baptist Church in December. We're going to do that.
Is that an SBC church?
It has dual membership.
Dual membership with
the Southern Baptist Convention and the Baptist General Convention of Texas.
Oh, okay.
But
so Leighton Flowers bunch.
Yeah. So, but I'll see Computer Theist is asking this. I meant to say, when we do these live streams, we usually take a topic or an article and we talk about that for sometimes it's 10 minutes, sometimes it's 15 minutes, sometimes it's 20 minutes.
Sometimes it goes on too long.
But after we get done with that, it's all Q&A. So the idea is that most of the show would be Q&A. So that's what we're going to do here in a little bit. I'll go ahead and say thank you so much, Jeremy Scott Despain, for that super chat. Thank you, Braxton and Jonathan, for being faithful to reaching out to skeptics, agnostics, and atheists. And Jeremy just did an interview with Godless Engineer that I thought was fantastic. They even get into free will, and I was listening to it on the way over here today, Jeremy, and I think I might cover part of that discussion on an episode of Trinity Radio. So thank you for doing that. I thought it was fantastic.
Ooh, Kenneth G has a question. Does Trinity not have? Yes, they do, and they don't have anything to do with Trinity Radio. So
that's right.
Now maybe we could, they'd want more money.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's just jump right into this article. Pritchett, would you like to read it, or would you like
you have
me
such
to read
a
it?
wonderful. There's something about your reading voice.
Well, thank you.
You.
The only problem with that is I have to find it again.
Now, I'll tell you who has a great reading voice.
William Shatner, who just came back from space.
Yeah. Jordan, Ortiz, I can't remember his last name. Ortez, I can't. Jordan, I just know Jordan from Real Reviews, and he's got his own podcast. His voice is just like butter. His voice is gold. He should have the biggest podcast in the world, and he could just read the phone book. That dude's voice. Jordan, sorry I butchered your last name, but y'all know. Go check out his stuff on YouTube.
All right, so obviously they're not here. We're not here to look at pop-up ads, but so I finally made it to the article. So I'm going to begin reading it. Jonathan, cut me off at any point you want to comment. This is from July 1st of this year. It's titled Atheists Against Atheism, and it's from the National Review. The link is in the description
of Christ
of this video.
Ministries is his one YouTube channel, and then his other YouTube channel is Real Reviews, where they review movies. And Jordan has yet to have me on, but that's the one Christian podcast I'd like to get up there and talk about movies. Why don't we ever talk about movies?
I don't know, but let's focus.
Don't sound like Jordan.
Let's focus on this article for a minute.
Voice.
Feel free to cut me off at any point with something relevant to the article. This interesting article written by Jonathan Van Maren for. Am I at the right place? Convivium chronicles the evolving thought of certain atheist thinkers on the question of Christianity and Western civilization. The historians Niall Ferguson and Tom Holland and the author and journalist Douglas Murray are the main focus of the piece, and all three men appear to have come to the conclusion that our modern liberal order rests on a foundation of pre-modern moral and social premises that were supplied almost exclusively by Christianity. This position, which Ferguson, Holland, and Murray all take to one extent or another, is fascinating not only for its honesty, but for its decadence in the historical rather than the material sense. None of the three men believe in Jesus Christ in the traditional religious sense, but they all believe in belief in Jesus Christ, or at least in the proposition that our civilization is being unmoored and unmade by the recession of widespread Christian faith. Ferguson is quoted by Van Maren as saying, quote, "I know I can't achieve religious faith, but I do think we should go to church. We don't have, I don't think, an evolved ethical system. I don't buy the idea that evolution alone gets us to be moral. It can modify behavior, but there's just too much evidence that in the raw, when the constraints of civilization fall away, we behave in the most savage way to one another. I'm a big believer that with the inherited wisdom of 2 millennia old religion, we've got a pretty good framework to work with."
Now,
before we continue, go ahead.
I say, isn't that, a powerful bit of honesty too?
Yeah.
Because if you're looking at the consequences of ideas, so you look at, well, let's spin morality out of a materialist, naturalistic world. Let's spin it out of biological evolution. Where does that get you? Well, it doesn't get you what some of the more popular level atheists are claiming it does. Mm-hmm. It gets you nothing. And that's, at least Alan Rosenberg and guys like that will admit that it gets you absolutely nothing. But why should it get you to a place where you can not savage one another? What's holding someone back?
Right.
Just because you like a certain set of ethics that's based on nothing doesn't mean other people are going to like that set of ethics.
Right.
And when you spin it out, the people who are willing to bite the bullet on the logical conclusions of that kind of worldview, they acknowledge that, yeah, this is not good, this is bad, and all you have is, I mean, we can always point back to the 20th century, that's one thing. But just look at a post-Christian America, right? People are a lot more savage to one another now. I mean, the summer of 2020 all the way through January 6th. I couldn't possibly care less what your politics are about any of that. What you should notice about all of it is just how much further people are willing to go than they have, before. Not that there's never been riots or anything.
Right.
But it is so much more amplified and exaggerated. You have people who don't believe in the systems anymore. You have law enforcement that are disillusioned. They don't really care anymore. They're indifferent to the, forget who's right and who's wrong and who's to blame and all that. Just step back and just take a bird's eye view of the savagery and decay and the decline of the United States.
Right.
And all of that, I think, comes from a post-Christian culture.
Yeah, I think there's two things here that I'd like to say, and let me bring the article back up. First of all, I want to say thank you so much to Jim Amberg, our channel angel. Thank you so much for helping us. It means the world to us, that substantial super chat. So glad you're here. Thank you. And I want to say here that when it comes to this issue of the article here in evolution, getting us to an ethical, helping us to develop principles ingrained in us because of herd mentalities, and I don't kill your young because then you might kill my young,
right.
And you develop this system. The thing about that is, first of all, it's still that's the thing that it gets brought up every time morality and ethics is discussed on any apologetics channel or atheism channel. It should be brought up on the atheist channels too. Is that's to confuse the epistemology with ontology. There's nothing that says that because even if we grant the case that evolution developed in us the propensity toward these ethical standards, that doesn't make them in any way binding in an ultimate sense. It's just, he likes this, I like that, and yeah, things in our evolutionary history may have led us to like this or that. But hold on, so that's the whole subjective objective. You're not still objective. Most of the new atheists on the internet are fine with that. They're like, yeah, I don't believe in objective moral values anyway. But then you run into this second problem that we've elucidated here many times before, and that is, okay, well, you've got basically these little groups of ethical systems, and I'm in my group and you're in your group, and you can say that the people in your group are doing things wrong, and as long as they agree with you about what wrong means and they like the same stuff you do, then they can say, yeah, I'm wrong then to do that, and y'all can have that discussion. But you can't shoot out of your ethical bubble to someone else's bubble and tell them that they're wrong. Even on your view, you can just say, we in our group think that sort of thing is wrong in our group, but as far as your group, we don't like it. Yeah. Is all you can really say to that. But here's what I wanted to say that I think really boils down the point of this quote is if you say like, many atheists will ask us, Dan Barker's asked this, Matt Dillahunty's asked this, Christopher Hitchens asked this, if you found out tomorrow as a Christian that there was no God and that Christianity is false, would you just become like this mass murderer or something? Would you become this rapist? Would you become, and of course the Christian wants to, Jonathan has sometimes said, who knows what I would become, but the Christian wants to answer, well, no, I mean, I'd probably still function, a lot of the things would still be the same about my personality and all that. The point of these guys is the reason you would still basically function that way, even though you have jettisoned acceptance of Christianity, is because of how Christianity has shaped your culture and made you into the kind of person who would feel that way.
The broader influence that created the milieu for which you would have those kinds of thoughts.
Right.
Because
like you're making our point. You think you're shooting down our point. Right. You're making a different point, Tom Holland's point.
Yeah. How much moral capital are you not acknowledging there? But the thing about, well, insofar as I don't want you to hurt my kids, so I'm not going to hurt your kids. I don't want you to steal my stereo, so I'm not going to steal your stereo. That gets you only so far until people no longer care about, well, if you come for mine, we'll see who's stronger, right?
Yeah.
And when you live but you have to contextualize that. Here's why I don't know what I would do. You have said if your family's not in the house, you know that you have a gun, someone's breaking into your house, they could be armed or not. You don't grab for the gun if you're by yourself. You are the kind of person who says, I'll help them carry the television out the front door.
Yeah.
Whereas if I can call 911 and the police are indifferent and everything's collapsing or they can't get there for another hour or whatever,
you'll defend your household even if it's just you there.
Strike first, don't care if they're armed. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I could see that
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not.
Could be more on the table. And it's
right.
Whereas I would think that, if I wasn't a Christian, Christianity is not true. Does it matter? Is there an Imago Dei that is redeemable that I could have a positive influence if I helped him carry the television instead of blow his brains out and hand him a gospel tract as he bleeds out? You see what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah. Oh, that's tough. And I don't begrudge anyone who doesn't have that particular standard that I do on that.
Right.
But
no, I mean, if you want to self-defense, I'm not getting that. I'm just saying I don't know what I would do, but I would be more inclined to grab for the pistol and shoot first and ask questions later if I didn't think that, well, there might be a redeemable Imago Dei person trying to steal my television. What kind of impact could I have? And just let him go if he didn't carry anything out.
Oh, yeah. You're saying that the Christian influence is what leads to something like that.
Where instead of shooting him, I might try to have a conversation.
Better his life.
Yeah.
And also, let's remember that currently the number one
that's if I was by myself.
Program on Netflix is Squid Games, which is basically Hunger Games times 100. And the whole basis of the show is that if you put people in certain circumstances, remove all laws, give them a motivation, in this case, a lot of cash, they will not only be okay with people dying, but will sign up for that sort of thing. Now, obviously, that's a fictional television show. So take it back, to the extent that something like that is true in a lot of people at all, makes the point that yes, it actually is more the case than you realize, that if you peel away everything, people act pretty animalistic. But to the extent that they don't, it's because they live in a Western Christian informed ethical reality.
Somebody's saying always with the exaggeration from JP. Yeah, because you test ideas on the edges of it.
Yes, this is why I forget the term. There's like a term for this phenomenon, but you can't talk about anything in philosophy for 30 minutes without Hitler coming up. Right. You know why that is? Because he tests things at the fringes, and that's the fringes.
Right.
Yeah.
And you see how far you can carry an idea. Does it hold up? If it's that's the whole point.
But I've got to say something.
I mean, anyone who's taken a Gen Ed intro to philosophy course knows that.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank KCA, which I'll assume stands for Kalam Cosmological Argument, Randy, who was I think an atheist who was challenging us on abortion a few weeks ago. And we kind of gave him, we're pretty straightforward with him. And yet he's been cool, like on other social platforms.
He's a grown-up. He doesn't care.
Yeah, so I appreciate that about Kalam Cosmological Argument.
No, I was just explaining why I do the, Plus, I mean, man, we got a show to run here. We got to make it entertaining.
So let's get back to the article, though. Let's see. Glenn Beck has always said that his show is the fusion of entertainment and enlightenment. But I think that's us. I think that's our. I think that should be our thing.
Yeah. I don't know that I'd ever be enlightened listening to Glenn Beck, from what little I know.
All right, here we go. Murray describes himself as an uncomfortable agnostic who recognizes the virtues and the values the Christian faith has brought. And Holland has written an entire book of history that subtitled, the subtitle of which is How Christianity Made the Modern World. And by the way, I've mentioned this on the show before, but if you'll go to Unbelievable Radio and you'll listen to the discussion between Tom Holland and N.T. Wright, it is fantastic, and it is so different than what you get from much of the popular level atheism stuff, because he says N.T. Wright and Justin Brierley asking him, well, so do you think Paul experienced something? And I think he says, yeah, he experienced something. So why did he suddenly go from persecuting the church to becoming one of its most able defenders? And Tom Holland's like, it's the craziest thing. Like, I have no explanation for what he must have experienced. And of course, here's N.T. Wright sitting over here like, well, I can tell you what he experienced, So, but this is what you get when you're like, okay, we're going to actually take the academic side of this seriously, go as far as we can, and it actually is starting to look like, from our case, that Christianity is true. From these guys in the article, from their point of view, it shows that Christianity is incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So in prior episodes, plenty, I've always been the own your stuff guy. Mm-hmm. So we have done plenty of acknowledging of atrocities in church history on this program. But we always want to balance that out with the overwhelming good, that Christianity has done. And Christianity has been the greatest force for good in the world, period. Period. And so sometimes when you focus too much on bits of church history, well, that was bad, and this was bad, and some of the Crusades got progressively worse, and the witch hunts. Okay, you can do that, you can play that game, but you have to also tell the whole truth and all of the good and all of the humanitarian work that for 2,000 years has been going on by men and women, in various local churches everywhere. Yeah, it's incredible. All the hospitals, all the adoption agencies, all just endless amounts of foods being distributed. I mean, you'd almost think that Christians were socialists, if you how much free stuff they give out. So
I've just thought of the topic, Jonathan, for our after show. You kind of led me there, but you didn't say anything about this. But it made me think. First of all, Mariah Lynn says, it's okay, JP. Some of us love your exaggerations, happy face. But what the after show today is going to be about these billionaires who are taking people like William Shatner into space. Should that be happening? Should that be going on?
The Prince William says no.
Prince William says no. And if you saw William Shatner's interview with CBS, even though he praised everything about it, it almost sounded like a no. So we're going to talk about that for the after show. But right now, let's get back to this article.
But Christianity, the force of good that Christianity has been in the world, despite anything you want to nitpick at any point in history, we do that a lot too. We don't try to sweep that under the rug. I don't try to best face it. I don't try to put lipstick on the pig of church history. Mm-hmm. But the amount of good is incredible, and the fact that because there is so much good in church history, it has led to, the moral frameworks, mainly in the realm of ideas, the big ideas.
Yeah. Let's give an idea. Let's give one of them. Let's give an example. So one example that Tom Holland rolls out is, look, the fact that we look upon people who are facing serious, discrimination or persecution as somehow being noble, like that. Like there's something good in them when they endure that thing. It demonstrates something good, something noble, something to be appreciated, something to we should try to help in those situations too. Where did that come from? Well, the notion that someone who has been downtrodden, and if you go back, Tom Holland says, well, in Rome at the time, like in the first century, if you'd said, but I'm a persecuted, discriminated, part of the society, the Roman would say, exactly, so please stay away from me. Whereas that's not the way it is today. All you see on the news is the talk about who's being discriminated against, who's being, persecuted. And this notion that we should specifically care more, and that there's something noble in that side of our society, well, that's bound up in the cross. That's the sort of narrative that Christianity brings about Jesus and his followers. And so this is one example of an idea like that.
Yeah, I mean, our it's so interwoven into the framework of ideas. It's so interwoven into the framework of how we discuss ethics. The categories were supplied by, generally we're still using, I would say, medieval and post-medieval Reformation type categories in our thinkings for ethics anyway. So I don't know. And all of that spills out of 2,000 years of theological reflection, of ethical reflection from a Christian perspective. Certainly 1,700 years of it, and not just the West, and the East as well. Even though Christianity is not as dominant in the East as it is in the West, still its influence is everywhere. And so when you think that you can kick out those pillars and keep the best of it and try to find an alternate explanation for it, that's a fool's errand.
It's why the secular attempts at making a secular church, and those exist, and certain things like that we did a show when we first got on YouTube 2 or 3 years ago about a group that got together to talk about death and all these kind of things, and how they wanted to they were very open that they wanted to take Christian stuff but not the Christian narrative. And it's doesn't work. You can't take that. You can't just rip the heart out of it, the thing that motivates everything about it, and then keep the track. This was Nietzsche. This was what we're going to get to that in the article, but so Bertrand Russell, because you want to explain things. And by the way, just want to tell you, it's 2:00. So if we want to get to Q&A and end at 2:30,
we got to get going.
We got to go.
Yeah, but I mean, so even Bertrand Russell acknowledged. So no matter the loftiest goals of a secular ethic, I always in that whole deal. I always remember when Bertrand Russell was talking about. I read where he said St. Paul's most useful idea was original sin, because no matter how.
I read that. I know that quote.
No matter how much you want to aspire for a completely secular ethic, it's never going to be lived out because there's no reason to ground it. It's because where does all this horrible stuff come from? Why can't we all be as enlightened as the post-enlightenment crowd wants us to be? Why does humanity still cause so much? And he's like, that's a pretty useful idea to help explain that other side of this coin that nobody wants to explain. And
that's coming from you, who is not fully Augustinian in his understanding of original sin.
Right.
All right, let's keep trucking here. It's not a coincidence that many of our intellectuals for this trend holds true for for more than these three, as Van Maren notes, are beginning to write about Christianity's normative influence on our moral intuitions at this time. So someone asked a moment ago, Pavel D in the chat asked a moment ago, I still don't understand why we should want to go to church. Why, if we don't believe, in the Christian message, why do these guys think that going to church is still a good thing? Well, because it will reinforce to you the Christian narrative that we see as good for society. Yeah. Let's see. A fish can live its entire life underwater without seeing how water contributes to its well-being. But when the fish is pulled up out of it by the hook, it knows water for the first time by its absence. Christianity is receding at a fast enough rate in our society for sensitive observers to see the cruciform silhouette of our way of life against the horizon of its absence. And here we go. Friedrich Nietzsche saw this tide receding as long ago as the late 19th century and celebrated it. Proto-fascist that he was. As the theologian David Bentley Hart writes, Quote, because Nietzsche was conscious of the historical contingency of all cultural values, he never deluded himself that humanity could do away with Christian faith while simply retaining Christian morality in some diluted form, such as liberal social conscience or innate human sympathy. Nietzsche was a prophetic figure precisely because he, almost alone among Christianity's enemies, understood the implications of Christianity's withdrawal from the culture it had haunted for so many centuries. He understood that the effort to cast off Christian faith while retaining the best and most beloved elements of Christian morality was doomed to defeat, and that even our cherished Enlightenment, quote unquote, virtues may in the end prove to have been only parasitic upon inherited but fading cultural predilections, and so prove also to be destined for oblivion. It seems as if a lot of our, this is the last of it, it seems as if a lot of our writers and intellectuals are having this same Nietzschean epiphany, but thankfully they're greeting it with a morally sane post-Auschwitz level of dread. Can the civilization drift they've put their fingers on be arrested? The civilizational drift, be arrested? Or are we already being inducted into the new moral order of a post-Christian West?
Well,
we're of course already being inducted. Right. We're slaughtering children, but
yeah, I mean, it all basically depends. But here's the thing that I'm glad that these.
I think it's interesting that people are mentioning the Crusades and things like this when you literally just mentioned the Crusades and things like this.
Yeah. Get back to and go watch the entire back catalog of Trinity Radio, where I'm never sweeping under the rug all the horrible things that have happened in church history. Unlike atheists who try to foul off, they're or
read what's so. I don't know what Dinesh D'Souza is doing now, or whether I should support that or anything or not. But his book, what's so great about Christianity? I was looking at the bookshelf behind Jonathan over there. What's so great about Christianity? We'll lay out for you the body count, and if you want that side of it, you can judge that for yourself.
Yeah. But
between atheists and Christians.
I'm glad that these atheists recognize this, because it means that they understand cultural history better than a lot of these atheists on the internet, which is no surprise there. But what is shocking to me, and this is not a statement about atheists, what is shocking to me is the number of Christians who I would normally think are thoughtful people, some of them apologists on YouTube, some of them not, celebrating the decline of cultural Christianity, and thank goodness all the fake Christians are finally leaving the church and all that. No, that's terrible. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard any Christian say is, well, we're glad that we're down to the true believers. And
God's got to prune those hedges.
Yeah. The dumbest thing I've ever heard. Cultural Christianity is why I never worried, and my parents never worried about people breaking into my house. It's why kids used to be able to play in the neighborhoods without worrying about catching gunfire or being kidnapped or anything else. It is a different world that we live in than just the ones that I grew up in. And yes, you owe a debt and I'm talking to the Christians, to those fake, nominal, cultural Christians who just, all they did was just behave themselves, and they were just inundated with all that horrible moralism that kept them from breaking into your house and beating you up on the streets. The dumbest thing I've ever heard from these Christians. I won't name names. But you can, if you listen to certain Christian channels and certain apologists on the internet, you can figure out who they are. And it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard them say.
I need to make a logo.
Of all the dumb things that I've heard them say.
I need to make a logo that says Prime Rant. Yeah. And when you do that, I need to throw it up on the screen.
Yes. You have to thank all those nominal Christians and all of that for their horrible moralism, because they behave themselves better than a lot of people do in a post-Christian America. I'm sorry, that's just the truth. Christendom, whether everyone's a true believer or not, Christendom is a great idea. It is a great civilization. It produces wonderful art. It produces wonderful literature. It's amazing, wonderful music. It's great, and it produces a safer culture. And so, you won't see me celebrating the decline of all these fake Christians.
Well, you have a criticism coming from Fame Montana, who says that isn't true at all. Not even biblically, what Jonathan is saying is true.
Okay, that's a claim. Well, you've made a statement that is actually true at all.
All right, so and Mr. Green is over here saying, preach it.
Yeah, they don't understand the influences of things outside of just the individual standing before a holy. It's the whole Roman.
Like, of course, we want everyone to actually be a born again Christian.
We do, but that doesn't mean that people aren't influenced by the
And actually, I would love it if Tom Holland, being a non-Christian, would attend my church every week if I was a pastor, because even if he's just doing it to be a part of the cultural Christianity, guess what? I got Tom Holland to preach to every week, and eventually maybe something will get through.
I mean, we want that. Yeah. I'm happier when the churches are filled with people who need to hear the gospel. Where's the problem?
Well, here's a little controversy. By the way, we're in the question and answer period time. Ask any question you like. Make any statement you like, as long as it's respectful. Derek says, let's be honest. It's the Reformed crowd. They're so black and white about things. All or nothing. Little nuance, like what Prime is offering.
Well, yes, a lot of them are. But you do have some of the fundamentalist, anti-reform types that I've heard spew that kind of gibberish too. The whole, we're the remnant and thank God that, this country's going to hell, but we're going to be all right, and then they go move to some sort of compound somewhere. And folks, whenever, you start living on a compound, things get really weird. It's just, I liked cultural Christianity. I thought it is a force for good in the world. You could still shame people into behaving themselves. So.
Yeah, Slam RN says, I thought Tom Holland became a Christian. Now, if that's true, that is fantastic. I remember someone mentioning to me that they suspected that was true or something like that, but I can't confirm it. So I'd love to know that that's confirmed, because I'd love to welcome him.
But if not, there's still it's something to be said for the recognition that even non-Christians have for these kinds of things, and they understand the history of ideas. They understand the cultural influence of a religion that has been a force for good in the world, and that needs to be. If you can't just acknowledge those kind of things, you're intellectually dishonest.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
there are a number of YouTube atheists who are intellectually dishonest. Say Christianity's done nothing good. People who just say
that's
statements
absurd.
like that is just the dumbest thing ever. But this is, and they're not being hyperbolic. They believe that.
Right.
They believe that Christianity is the worst scourge on the planet.
It's how religion poisoned everything.
Yeah.
Right. But
but I don't think even Hitchens would be that moronic.
Here's what Jeremy says. Many of us Christians attend church with the wrong hearts at one point or another. We go to church with the hope to conform to the image of Christ. We should have grace for people to grow. And that made me think something here is that I've told atheists, I've told Paul Ogia this, I think. I've told other people, and because I remember he posted something about some worship song and how he thought it was really powerful about a year ago, even though he doesn't believe now and that sort of thing. And I think that if you're really wanting to get to the truth, Christianity is a belief that or a system that provides evidence. It's always been that way from the beginning. Paul did that in Acts 17. Jesus did that with miracles, the resurrection itself. It's all built around all that sort of thing. But it's also experiential. It's also philosophical. It's also what you should do if you really want to find out whether Christianity is true is you should immerse yourself in a Christian community. Start going to a good church. Find a church where you actually kind of enjoy the pastor. This is what I've tried to do by putting our pastor out there on occasion. Mix in though with a community of Christians, because I think it can be very, and also if you do want answers to questions, that church may be able to point you to evidential answers as well. So I think that not far from saying I'm glad they've been pruned out of the local congregation. I want them in it as a form of evangelism through culture and community.
And this is why I don't understand ex-evangelicals at all. I don't get it, because if I became like a non-Christian, right? I'm not going to go hang out I'm not going to go try to find the atheist chapter of Evansville and try to hang out with those people, because most of them would drive me nuts, because and I'm not going to embrace every wacko idea or shibboleth. And atheists like, no, we're not monolithic. Well, on a lot of things you are. We had that show. Mm-hmm. And I was going like, okay, so now it's cool to kill babies because I don't believe in Jesus anymore. It's like I don't get some of these moves from these ex-evangelical types either, because I'm not going to go try to. I'm going to still hang out with the Christians, because Christians are cool people.
Well, here, KCA Randy says, Christian nationalism shows not everything that comes from it is good. I'm sure you distance yourself from it, or I hope you will. So let me say something about this. In my most recent book, currently, Letters from Ignorantia, I have a whole chapter on this subject because it's not a big book, so it's not a big chapter. But so how do most people read the Bible today? Our Bibles are mirrors, our churches are mirrors, our government is a mirror, because we see ourselves reflected in everything, and we put a lot of our own presuppositions and things like that onto it. And when you read your Bible right now, you read it on a phone, at least many of you do.
I do.
And your phone is in a sense a mirror, especially if you have it backlit black on your Bible app. And every time you read the Word of God, you're actually also staring at a mirror of yourself, and you're filtering everything the Bible says through your own opinions and ideas and thoughts and all that sort of thing. And I go off about that, and I go off about the implications of that analogy, but then there's a further utility to it, and it's this, is that many Christians also print the pages of the Bible, not literally, but metaphorically, onto the American flag or onto a campaign poster. And it doesn't belong there either. I'm not saying you can't use scripture and stuff like that. That's not my point. My point is that we have wrapped up America, or Western, wherever you are, if you're in the West, we often wrap up our political party with our theology and understanding of the Bible such that it's all one package, and that's wrong. So if someone reasons, okay, I can't be a part of, say, the Democrat Party because of their stances on abortion or something like that, and so maybe I should be a part of the Republican Party or be third party or whatever else, fair enough. I think that is a wonderful reason not to support many of the politicians in the Democrat Party.
The ones that Pritchett 2024.
The ones that are pro-choice. But at the same time, when we're talking about whether you should endorse everything that your party now endorses, well, that's wrong too. I think there are many Christians, and hopefully this is just a very, very fundamentalist, in the negative sense of fundamentalist way of thinking about it. But there are many who would think, well, we don't need to worry about the environment. They may not even ever say this verbally, although I have heard it said verbally. We don't need to worry about the environment. Jesus is coming back soon, and blah, blah, blah. Sorry, God gave you this world to take care of, and that's wrong too. Now, so yes, I very much think I'm a Christian before I'm an American. Yeah. I'm a Christian before I'm any particular denomination. And so I do think that hopefully
You're a Christian Nashvilleian is what you are.
I'm a patriot, but I'm not a nationalist.
That phrase, Christian nationalism, means so many different things to so many different people. Okay, so let me give you an example. I remember watching an episode on Tim Stratton's channel where he was having a conversation with Adam Coleman. And Tim Stratton, I think, is good for the universe.
Yes.
And he said that he identified as a Christian nationalist.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he said that. He said, well, I'm a nationalist in this sense.
Yeah, he defined his term.
So what kind of Christian nationalism are you talking about? It's like woke. So there's a world of difference between gender-neutral toy aisles woke and MJ Jackson, who also identified. So when people dump on woke or dump on Christian nationalism,
be specific with your language.
What do you mean by that? Because it means so many different things to so many different people. So,
be precise with your language. Define your terms.
Yeah, because, Tim Stratton's good. He's Christian nationalist according to his self-identification. I'm a Christian and I'm a nationalist. And he doesn't run around and do weird things or whatever. Then you have him.
He doesn't believe Jesus is. He doesn't believe Jesus is coming back wrapped up in the American flag with blonde hair and blue eyes.
Jackson, who identifies with the woke church, but if you ask him, what do you think about general neutral bathrooms and general neutral toy aisles and skittle-haired colored white lesbians talking about all this other type of nonsense, and he's going to be like, yeah, that's not woke. That's not what I'm on about. Mm-hmm. And so, I don't know that. Hope I'm against what? I don't know what by Christian nationalism you mean. Just saying when people say, why do you hang out with people who identify as woke? Well, do you understand what they mean by woke as opposed to what other people mean by woke? Mm-hmm. Same thing. So I'm not going to just say, well.
Derek, thank you for this super chat. It says, congrats on having Melissa Doherty endorse your book. Now is a good time for me to say everyone should buy and read Letters from Ignorantia.
Absolutely. It's the best book you've ever written. And her channel's awesome.
She gave me a glaring review.
Yeah,
I really appreciated that.
Her channel's awesome. Everyone goes and subscribe to Melissa's channel.
Yes, please. And thank you, Melissa, if you happen to see this.
And did you the video that she had recently that kind of blew up was the conversation with a first century Christian That is everyone should go.
It's in my watch list, but I haven't seen it
Oh
yet.
yeah, it was fantastic. She did
Okay, I did get a question down here somewhere. Where did it go? Do you think, this would be good, do you think churches should have an American flag inside, celebrate Veterans Day, Memorial Day? I'm not asking as a Christian nationalist, but how can we have balance? So let me give you, I think, what could be understood as both sides.
Video on this and Trinity Radio.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the 4th of July thing.
First Trinity Radio Extra video. This kind of stuff.
Well, you can go watch that. It's linked in the description, the other channel, our second channel. But so here's basically two sides of that coin. One side of that coin is we are Americans, and we are primarily impacting American culture in American churches like that. And so to have, say, the Christian flag and the American flag over there reminds us to be grateful for the freedoms that we have, to fellowship like this, and to pray for others who, and to pray for our country, and to pray for our president, and pray for our troops, and all that, teachers, all that. On the other hand, the other side of that says, well, this can even non-verbally result in the sort of thing that we were just decrying a moment ago, which is wrapping up America and politics and all that with everything the Bible says and the gospel and all of those sorts of things. So I think that is true. The solution to that, I think, is, first of all, I don't care whether you have an American flag. I don't care. But I do think it would be good to talk about that issue, right? Why is it that these heady issues need to only be discussed on podcasts and YouTube channels? And pastors can address this.
Yeah. Well, my answer to this question is very easy. The question asked, do you think Christians should? Should? No, absolutely. They should not. If the question is should have.
Like, is it morally wrong not to have it?
Should? No. What do I think about, can you? Yeah. Should you? I have no idea how to answer that question. Let every church answer that question for themselves. But like you, it's adiaphora. I couldn't possibly care less if we sing God Bless America and there's an American flag and you got the one guy in his red and blue suit. You know, there's always that one guy. Or I come in dressed like Vanilla Ice because it would be fun. And, you know, whatever. If you want to do that, fine. If you don't want to do that, fine. I couldn't possibly care less. And I've read all of the arguments. I've seen how serious people take this. And I'm not convinced by any of it. I think it's no.
Well, you know, when I was in Northern Ireland,
neither side convinced me of anything.
When I was in Northern Ireland, the pastor there was telling me about how they had got this, you know, basically something like a Masonic lodge or something. Yeah. They had gotten control of that to hold a multi-church event in there, and they were trying to take down, because they were going to have people from, you know, the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland and all that. They took down all the you know, British specific type stuff, and they left the Queen's picture. So you want me to take that down? He's like, no, it's a monarch. Leave that up there. It's like, do you think that if I'm the visiting pastor from America and I go in there, I'm going to think, oh my gosh, these Queen worshipers? I mean, that's not even that's like the most remote thing from my mind.
She's like one of the top 5 Christian apologists in the UK.
Defender of the faith, right?
That's God bless the Queen. We should have more pictures of her in America just to trigger the 4th of July people. I mean, have both. Or either. I don't care. And, you know, and for me, though, number one, I can never be convinced by how pious you try to sound on either side of any argument. You know, that's pseudo-pious blather. And number two, I've seen people butcher proof texts to try to make their point on either side of this. And I'm just like, okay, I've heard the arguments on both sides, and what it really comes down to is it doesn't matter. Stop caring.
Yeah, this is a good question. This will be the last question.
What you should have is a flag with my face on it in your church. That's what you need to have.
That is how cults begin.
But that's how you make
Although
money.
we did one time, I even made a graphic for it, the Church of Pritchett or something like that.
Yeah.
All right, so this is the last question because we've got to go to the after show, which we would love to see you there for, which is going to start at 2:30 at patreon.com/TrinityRadio.
And I'm just going to call it next week because we ran out of time this week. We will do just a Q&A show next week.
Just Q&A.
Just Q&A because we're shortchanging the cheap people.
All right, here's what it says. On your personal search for God, when were you satisfied that Christianity is more true than any other religion? Okay, so I'm very open about this. People think this is some kind of like gotcha thing on me. I don't really care. I was raised in a wonderful Christian family. My parents weren't officially apologists, but they were apologists in the sense that they tried to give me answers to the questions that I asked, and they gave great answers. I still remember a couple of my father's answers that he gave to questions I had about the resurrection that I know are now true, totally true today, and he knew it back in the 80s and could tell me about it.
Yeah.
So I had all of that. So I kind of grew up with the, accepting this as the nature of reality. I did ask questions, and that was when we lived in Florida. So I would have been 8 years old. I was asking questions about why should we believe the resurrection and things like that. But once I became an adult, I assessed this, took it apart, put it back together. I know you won't like this answer, but this is the answer. I, by that point, had a personal experience with the Lord Jesus Christ and had such a seen answered prayers and just seen God work in my own life that there wasn't really that much doubt at that point. But the evidence that I think was most convincing for me was the Kalam cosmological argument. The fact that if I believe there is a God, why the Christian God? Because I would expect if there is a God who created us with a desire for relationship and with moral ideas and duties and values, that this God, it seems like not a far leap to believe that he would want to communicate or in some way interact with us. When I look at human history, the most obvious example of that, the most important and influential figure in all of human history, without question, is Jesus. And he never even wrote anything down so far as we know or traveled far from where he lived. And it has impacted, the whole world since then. So that's one. And then near-death experiences, I think, are powerful. Those are just some of the things. I mean, I like to talk about design arguments, moral arguments, but those three, for me, I mean, it's just I don't have much more I have to worry about. I think about those. And of course, I consider new challenges, but there aren't many new challenges. Pritchett?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see, my personal search for God actually started when I got saved at 17. And so it wasn't until after that I started doing more worldview investigations, right? And on into my early 20s where I started getting into apologetics and stuff. But for me, it's more of a cumulative case approach, right? I mean, because...
Quickly describe that.
Well...
Because we've got only a few minutes.
Take a lot of phenomena that's common to everybody, and what's the best explanation for all the things, not just the...
No, I mean, describe your cumulative case.
Well, for me, it was things like, number one, it was the some classical stuff. I just thought the Kalam was great, and that made a lot of sense, and it harkened back to my time reading
philosophical stuff.
Yeah, and then, but just things like what could explain free will, what can explain beauty actually being real, and things like that. So, really, things like that, free will, beauty, like objective beauty, like recognizable beauty, and why there's something rather than nothing. And so Kalam's and contingency type arguments, cosmological, that just, to me, that solidified that. And then I shifted my focus to the resurrection, and that case is just ace. So I mean, that's when I knew that it could not just be a God, but a particular God. And the case for the resurrection is just too good. It's unbeatable.
Last thing I'm going to say on this stream is that we have a super chat that is a very substantial super chat from Ralph Como. I'm going to say Como. Thank you so much. That is unbelievable.
We appreciate that, Ralph.
And there are needs that you don't even know about.
You, man. And if you're not a patron, send a email to us and we'll send you the link.
Yeah, or just try to just go look at the Trinitarians Facebook group.
Yeah, for that kind of,
and we'll let you in.
That kind of donation, you get to see the.
Okay, well, listen, folks, I have really
more time
had a blast with this, and this has been a fun show, hasn't it, Pritchett?
I've enjoyed it,
and we'll see you next time on Trinity Radio.